What is happening, fam? It is your boy, the Sultan of Sativa, the Ayatollah of Indica, the Bobby Fischer of BHO, aka the Gordon Ryan of Ganj, aka the Hickson of Hash, aka the President of the United Bakes of America, Donald Blunt, aka Lord Baltimore, and welcome to another brand spanking new episode of the number one canna podcast on the planet. Let's talk about it. We're going to dive right in. I have a special guest today, Dr. Kim McGeorge. Her Instagram is at Secret to Everything. Kim, why don't you give us where people can find you, who you are, some background. We're jumping right in.
Wow, we're jumping right in. All right. So Serene Wellness on Twitter. I don't know how they have rebranded currently because my 10,000 Facebook Secret Everything got hacked. So now it's some like pillow company. You know, Kimberly McGeorge, or I don't know, Dr. Kimberly McGeorge on Facebook. Then Secret Everything Kimberly McGeorge on YouTube. So those are or you can just drop me in Google because you'll get a couple pages. LOL.
Perfect. And just to let people know, I first heard Dr. Kim on Isaac Weishaupt's, what is it, Occult Symbolism and Popular Culture podcast. Got to give him a shout out. He is full of tons of interesting knowledge, and I've learned a lot kind of about the symbolism element of things. And from him, and then I heard Dr. Kim, and I was very interested in the work that she does. And, she graciously accepted an invite to come and chat with me.
Yeah, why not? Always up for a chat. You're lucky. I'm actually a big fan of I'm a bigger fan of THC than I am of any form of whole leaf stuff, just because that's what I need. I just need to chill out. I don't need like I vape sometimes, but I really try not to use it because one day I combined, I don't know if I should even say this, but one day I combined THC with GABA. Do not do that. Probably like everyone's going to run out and do that, but I lost like 15 hours of my life. I was like one with the mat and had all sorts of beans come in and talk to me. It was like in the middle of the day too. So I was like out from like 2 to like 7 the next morning. Do not combine that. Who would know? But I should have thought, because like THC works on like the nervous system and the brain, and then GABA works on the nervous system and brain. So generally it's not a good idea to stack anything that's, like having a similar or same effect, but it like, who will never do that again. I might slip that to an enemy, but I'm not ever going to do that myself. But yeah, I'm a pretty big THC fan. I use THC. My white dog has seizures, so I give him 1 or 2 drops. His seizures stop immediately. I'm like a huge another one of my dogs went into respiratory distress. 1 drop THC stopped him, he could breathe. So big fan of the effect on the nervous system, and it does open you up. Although the negative downside of that, which you probably not the audience for, but I'm going to say it anyway, is I have pictures of the aura of people, and you can see all the holes. It does. A lot of things punch holes in your auric field, not just marijuana, but it does punch holes in your auric field. So I really like people that, including myself, who use any form of it. It's important to kind of like seal your aura, because then you're vulnerable to, like I said, it doesn't take much, but you're vulnerable to possession, which has been a big focus of my research in the last year or two. Is, I started out doing exorcisms when I was 20, and I thought I knew everything. I knew nothing. I didn't understand what the avatar was. I didn't understand what this place was. I was still doing like the religious form of exorcism, but now it's like so common. It's just a container, and we all get jumped. We all don't get like exorcism level, like, your head spins backwards, vomiting, possessed, but we're all like, I haven't looked at you, but you're probably jumped right now. I'm probably jumped too, because as soon as we open up Black Mirror technology, which we're on, Black Mirror technology is a portal. So, so whatever's in your house might want to come here. Whatever's in my house might want to go visit you. Whatever's in your body might want to jump to me. Whatever's in my body want to jump to you. And then even audience, you can even watch something, like you could watch something recorded on YouTube and you could get jumped, even though that's because all time is now. So there is no time and space, right? So that's how you can get jumped from recorded stuff. So yeah, I've learned a lot about possession and clearing. And that's a big focus of mine right now is both.
Well, it's cool that you brought that up because I mean, I think I mean, one, I've actually really been diving back into the Bible.
Wow.
Um, not just because of like, some Christian belief, right? It's like I'm trying to figure out how to start introducing my kids and into a relationship with God and how to get connected to these, almost spiritual sciences, and you read shit like Jesus relieved Mary of 7 devils, and it's like, what does that mean? And then you start,
It's
I'm going to
true.
kind of jump around. I'm going to tell you I'm an
Yeah,
ADD kind of person,
I am too.
but
I'll keep up.
perfect, perfect. So I've been reading some of the, H.P. Blavatsky, like Secret Doctrine. I actually read, I'm halfway through this book on, I forget the fucking guy's name and the name of the book, but it's about auras and like these experiments they did.
Mhm.
Yes, it's from like 1900, like pre Rockefeller era. So my iPad just got stolen last week out of my car, so where I had all these PDFs, but I will find that book
Yeah,
and
I'm interested in that.
I found it on the archive. That's like been my go-to lately. And but he's talking about like basically like he would put people in front of a window with different colors of like paper behind them and like a certain amount of lighting coming through and you could see, and he talked about some people would have no auras at all.
Yep.
And like, some people it's more dim. I got about like halfway through it and got sidetracked. I'm like a multi-book reader.
Me too.
Um but
Me
I
too.
get bored with one at a certain point and
Well,
I jump to something else or
too.
and so the my thought, and then like it might have been Blavatsky or somebody else, but they're talking about how like kids under the age of 7 are still closer to that side than they are this side, even though they're in the dense physical. Something to do with like them losing their teeth is a part of the process, and like them really rooting into this realm, this plane of existence. And so like you're talking about exorcisms and holes in the arc field. Can you dive in a little bit deeper?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I actually just looked at your aura, which is interesting. I'll send it to you. Like, I'll take a screenshot and send it to you after so you can like kind of track with what I'm saying. But yeah, it's interesting because I was just talking about holes in the aura and I pulled up your aura. You're definitely what we would call jumped, but like I said, so am I. You're fairly what we call integrated, which is I can tell you're awakening or you're awake because the aura starts to become one color versus like orange, red, green, purple. You'll see when I send it to you. And you have and you have some light in your aura, which also indicates awakening. But when I go to another view of the aura, like right this second, you're only about, and I don't know if you can feel this, and it'd be really good for you if you can kind of at least tap in now and see how you're feeling, because you're only about one in your body right now. So you've stepped out, leaving what for something to come in and take up 2/3 if it wants, something wandering by. So like I said, something in my house, and so the body is such a hot commodity in this game. So hot, in fact, that, even though I don't believe in time and space, we'll use it for the, 3D audience. But, so hot that other races will get into pods and pay like equivalent, like a couple $1 billion to jump a body in this game and play. They have the technology. It's consciousness transfer. My family works in cloning, as you know, if you listen to his show. I talk about cloning, but they also work in consciousness transfer. So they're able to take part of because your spirit or soul is like the ocean. So, you take your little measuring cup down to the ocean when you're a kid and you're filling up your moat for your castle. Well, you could do that 7,000 times. Are you going to run out of ocean? No, you're never going to run out. You can't actually sell your soul because it's infinite. So that whole thing about selling your soul is not exactly what happens. You more sell your consciousness. You don't really sell your soul because you can't really sell your soul. Because once you come out of the all, your soul can't be destroyed unless you choose to go back to the all. But you can tell I'm ADD. I go back on my rabbit trails too. But back to your auras. So yeah, so you know what I really see in your aura prominently, and then I'll let you talk again is, you're really It's interesting. You're a really loving person. You have a lot of natural intuition. You're an older soul and you have a lot of natural intuition. One of the things I saw that came up on you is you don't always listen to yourself. And you really do have a knowing. We all do, but you especially have a knowing based on like just living a lot of incarnations, both in the game and outside of the game at the same time, and having been around a while. So you should listen to yourself more.
It's funny. I have chills just hearing you talk about that because obviously we have not had very much conversation at all, you
Right.
know. And I mean, you're that's it's somewhat general, but to be honest, exactly what you said is exactly how I feel. Even as a kid, I felt advanced, like I felt like I saw through shit, way easier than most people. And you talk about not listening to myself. Every single time that I don't listen to my gut is exactly like those are key moments in my life that I knew I was in the wrong place. I used to be an addict. I was hooked on heroin,
Wow.
and it's crazy because like I felt how dead my spirit was while I was in that world. And like we're just so susceptible, and when I got clean and I've worked towards a new perspective, it's like I've always felt like the same me, but I've also feel like I've lived many lifetimes.
Well, you're what we call, what I call fire creation being. So you're a limitless, eternal expression of the all, living multiple incarnations in and outside the game, in thousands of places at once. So really, when people talk about past lives, there's no such thing as past lives. People talk about future lives. There's no such thing as future lives. It's all lived in the now. Like right now, you're living every life you ever will live, which is super cool because you can tap into that. You can access the relationships, you can access the wisdom, you can access the abilities, you can access the knowledge from any of those lives, if you learn your soul signature and how to connect to that. So another interesting thing about you, which is pretty common, is I'm in a clone body and you're in a clone body. This is not the original body you were born into. So what that means is generally because we decide as an oversoul when we exit. The controllers don't decide. God doesn't decide. We decide. It's in our plan for us when we come into each incarnation, wherever we are. And so you were probably killed. I imagine you probably had some near-death experiences, either that the family knows about or you know about that you can recall, where you almost died, or I have a near-death experience where I did die. So they sometimes have to switch the body out because what they don't tell you is they have all this time technology so they can actually replace your body. So let's say you were in a car accident and it was supposed to be fatal and they're like, oh, you should have died. All this was wrong, and you're like, but you barely made it. A lot of times you will die and they will pull your body, freeze time, shove in a new body, you know what I mean? Age it, put your tattoos, everything on, and then they'll, shove it back in. So you're not in your original body that you were born, neither am I. Some people are, but rarely. Most of us have died, but we're running the game. Our energies, our soul energies running the game. So they're not going to take out, the people they love to use and abuse.
Well, and look, while you're on the topic of cloning, I have to jump in because I find that to be such a fascinating topic. I had a teacher in high school, and he really confirmed a lot. He pretty much was like, "Hey, if you learn this crap that we have to teach you, I'll teach you
Right.
the real shit."
That's cool.
And so he would. This was unfettered internet days. This was 2003. He'd be like,
Wow.
"Elliot, go look up this," and I go look it up, and there'd be tons of information on these things. Like the one I always remember is Rex 84, turning Walmarts into FEMA camps, concentration camps in America already set up, and just like being like a little fear in the back of my head. He's the one I was like 17, told me to read "Behold a Pale Horse,"
Wow.
um, and some of that stuff really was like kind of weird. But he brought up cloning many many years ago. Like I said, this was 2003. And he was like, Elliot, they have their technology, whatever they're showing you, you got to think they've had that for 100 years, at least.
Well,
And
they've actually always had it. So we had it in Egypt. I mean, since the beginning of the game. So there's literally nothing they haven't always had. It's what they want to introduce to you. So and then we have to go, above projects, daytime projects, black projects, It's all different levels of introduction, like what they call med beds, which they don't really call med beds. They call them something else. I forget what they call them. I mean, they have them in every major hospital right now, including the age regressions. You could go in certain hospitals if you knew how to access the room. You could regrow an arm right now. You could cure cancer in a second right now. You could age regress to my magic age, like 32 right now. It's all available right now. It's not available to, I mean, and because we don't remember that it's available, we don't demand it. You know, if everybody was like me, it would be out there because it would be forced out. But we don't force it out because we're like, we let them serve us, you know, shit on a plate all day long. And even school, even like your teacher said, that's 100% programming. It's not just all the magical body things. The reason babies, you know, forget who they are, forget how to see through the densities or what we call dimensions, but it's because the programming starts. You know, I was placed in front of Sesame Street. You want to talk about rotting a brain? Try an awake being being put in front of Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street. I wanted to kill myself watching that stuff. That's like program drivel. You know what I'm saying? And as soon
Yeah.
as you know, I mean, I remember them talking about like the sewer. This is weird, but I was like 5, talking about the sewer systems. And I started seeing movies of tunnels and card games and prostitutes and bodies and aliens under the city. So, like, I would go there, you know, they would talk about the sewer systems. Then I found out that every major city, and I've seen part of the tunnels under Winston-Salem, has this whole mafia run underground. And then under that is like the bases and the other stuff. So there's like layers to our reality that at 5 I could see. So I knew what they were telling us was BS, like at 5, you know?
Fine. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I love in some of the stuff that I've listened to of yours is you talk about like knowing these things at such a young age and like thinking some of this thought process was normal. And then like when you express who you are, then you realize how not like you others are.
Well, yeah, and I know by your energy that you know what I'm talking about too on different levels.
100%.
I believe one of the reasons you went into drugs is to escape this reality, to be honest with you. I think you had questions and you had pain and you had issues that you could not resolve without doing it. I feel like that was your best answer. I know this is going to sound horrible. I'm sorry to anyone who's an addict, but I believe it was your best answer at the time. It's no different than alcohol. It's no different than sexual addiction. How many people have sexual addiction? I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of. I find the most awake people on the planet are the hardest drug addicts.
Well, and it's funny because even in the like throughout different phases of my life, I had like different experiences with different drugs, right? It was like, you know, I had a phase of like when I first really got into psychedelics, you know, I was like really looking for God and trying to like have questions answered. And then like, and you know, my belief is that psychedelics kind of, specifically mushrooms, you know, the most, they kind of break down the layers and help us to like see different perceptions outside the normal pathways of our brain. But then I got into like cocaine and like there was a phase where that was the answer. And then, you know, and then that ended with me trying to kill myself. And then like I got in, you know, I got into, you know, I got injured, got hooked on pills and dope. It's like everyone else's story, you know, but even through all that, I mean, I was going through these crazy situations, putting myself in this complete chaos, did not care, wanted to die, or wanted to just escape. Right. Not necessarily wanted to die, but just didn't want to live the way that I was living anymore. And, but I never felt like I was really at risk of dying. Like that was not going to be where my story ended. And like, I really had to go to zero and eat out of trash cans and, you know, beg for money and steal shit and whatever. So I could see a different perspective, you know, and I'm getting ready to change industries right now and actually get into the recovery world.
Wow.
Because it's a much different world than it was when I got clean. And I spent about 2.5 years abstinent, you know, involved in a 12-step program, really did everything they tell you to do. Really like worked on my relationship with God, you know, went through therapy, learned how to identify where I was like fucking up, learned that it's really about just like being a better person, putting principles in your life to live by. and show that you are the example, and I really feel connected to that mission, and I've always felt since getting clean. Obviously, I reincorporated cannabis into my life, mushrooms, usually at a smaller level than it used to be, but there are times where I need a hard reset. Sit for 6 hours on my yoga mat,
I love
exploring the
that.
depths of my brain, listening to my little 528 hertz with my little crystals and my herbs, and maybe
You
some
know
Palo
what?
Santo.
I'm going to tell you a weakness of yours that I want you to work on, and you won't
All
care
right.
because you're an open person. It's not bad. It's not horrible. But specifically to you, you are very still, despite your recovery, which is substantial. I want you to work on you're so self-condemning, especially in your private like self-talk to yourself. You're so fucking hard on yourself and you need to stop it because it's not true. Most of the stuff you tell yourself about yourself is not true. And then the other part of it is it's not always your thoughts. So you have a lot of MK Ultra because you are such an old soul and that you are being used in the projects. There's a lot of mind control and EMR where they're putting, your voice in your head as yours, but they don't have to do a lot with you. You have plenty of your own. You're people might not see you as a perfectionist, but you actually are like a hardcore perfectionist about yourself. You're not super judgmental of other people, but you want to be like excellent and you are so hard on yourself. And you need to be more celebratory and self-nurturing and radical self-forgiving than hard on yourself.
So while we're on the subject, I guess let me try to figure out how to phrase this because you are very on the money in a lot of ways. Like I have spent a lot of my life feeling like I was lazy and like looking for an easy way out, and so for me, it's like it was always pounded into my head like, "El, stop being lazy." When it's like there'd be something I was interested in and I'm all the
Mhm.
way in, 100% in school. It'd be like straight A's in the things that I liked. Math class or science, E. Didn't care,
You
you
and I are the
know?
same person. You don't have to tell me.
And,
You know who you are.
and it really is like, even now, what's crazy is that I am very hard on myself in a lot of ways, and self-critical. And some of that is also reflection of some of the other people that have been around me,
Sure.
specifically in the last few years. And I have really this last year been trying to rewire shit because when I am celebratory, when I am focused on like putting my mental and physical and spiritual energy towards
Right.
like what I need to, I mean, this recovery program we're working on, it really stemmed from, I listened to a podcast, I listened to the same guy. A guy was on there talking about he made a crap ton of money opening these recovery houses. And I was like, wow, I thought I was going to have to be a slumlord chasing people down for $150 a week. I didn't realize the government would pay. And they pay good. And so I just brought it up to a friend of mine, and he immediately was like, "Hey, I can help us finance like a house. We can rehab it." You know, and then like it started moving, and it was like where we're at now. We have a team. It's like a guy who's a business like guru almost. We have
Wow.
a real estate guy. Like me and my original partner, will be kind of hands on in the day to day. It's just like really falling together. I have had to contribute like no financial,
It's awesome.
and everyone else is like, ready to stroke checks, ready to put, like teams of people on fixing the building, stroke, and it's like just coming together.
I'm
And
not
it's like
surprised.
the problem is that like all these things that I've been fucking busting my ass for and trying to like jam my way into and force over the last
Right.
6, 7 years
Right.
have all failed.
Right.
And this is just moving. And it's just like, how can I stay in the now? How can I understand the process and like know that it's happening and it's just taking time to materialize here on this plane now?
Right. But there's something you need to know about yourself that I think could be rather life changing if you could really take it in and understand or awaken the memory of it. So let's go back to the lazy comment because I've been called lazy since I was a child. She's lazy. You don't follow through. You don't do this. You're scattered. You're, all the stuff. I don't even have to articulate it to you. Then I found out you and I actually know each other, by the way. We've had many, many lives together in the game in a very intimate, I'm not saying intimate. I hope your wife doesn't get, not like that. Maybe like that, but we won't talk about it.
Maybe
But you'll know,
I'm
when I say it, you're going to understand. Here's where
I'm
I
a spirit that likes connectedness.
well, wait till you hear. I'm going to give you a huge key. And remember, all time is now. This is not a past life. This is concurrently now. So you are one of the original members of the Anunnaki. You're a game maker, a game creator, a game coder. What that means is, of course, you're going to be lazy. You're used to being worshipped. You're used to having sex with whoever you want all day. You're used to endless money and power. That's in your active memory as who you are. You're the original family of the creators of the game. And so, yeah, you're Anunnaki, your family. I'm Anunnaki too. And not everybody is. A lot of people will say they are. You actually are. You've heard people say, like, I'm Enki, I'm this, I'm that. One of the things people don't know about the Anunnaki, which we don't have to go into because it's like way out there, but they're body jumpers. Everybody's actually body jumpers, but we're not going to go deep into that. But the Anunnaki, all those twisted stories about the Anunnaki, like they slept with their sister or they chopped off some guy's dick. They have crazy stories, right? And threw it into it. Right. Part of that is because they're pranksters, they're body jumpers. They are like the gods of all gods of all gods who are like first waivers. They're going to do crazy stuff because they understand they can do anything. It doesn't matter. And so we're coming from this hedonistic current, because realize the game is only like 25, 30,000 years old, and we're eternal beings that have lived trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of years. This is recent memory, as if you want to look in the earth cycle of time. So this is like fresh memory of us being worshipped. We want to be famous. We want to be worshipped. We're used to it. So it's not being lazy. It's actually a memory of not having to do shit and have anything we want. That's not laziness. That's memory.
And I feel like you're spot on with that because honestly, I've always felt like I've been an impactful person. It's like
you are.
It's like it's from a small kid. It's like I've always been a trendsetter. I've always been somebody that was ahead of the game, and whatever. Like I've always felt like I can do anything that I want and be with whomever I want. And my spirit can mesh well with anywhere, I don't know how, what your thoughts are towards any of like the astrological side of things, but like I've definitely felt connected to like the elements of those, those signs in the way the wheel works.
Yeah. So that's program. It is a program. So it is a program within the game. So it is, to me, when you awaken, you find tarot cards, you find astrology. A lot of people give up religion, not saying you have to, but a lot of people do it, and they move into the Ouija boards and the psychedelics, and these are all tools, the pendulums, nothing wrong with them, but there's so much more for you. And I think you'll get there because of who you are, because I see clearly who you are. Eventually you'll lay all this down and you will be enough and you will connect directly because you hold so much light and power, and the ability to hold so much light and power, which is partly why you had to go to drugs. Someone who is who you are, we are not taught how to hold the light and power that we have in the body and play by the 3D game rules because they're memory wipe us, and we choose to be memory wiped. That's the challenge, is finding our way back without picking wrong partners, without being handled, without dying of overdoses, without killing ourselves. I wanted to kill. This is what
Yeah, one day at a time. Yeah. That's real.
They hid like nail files. They hid like anything. They hid like anything that I could jab and cause, try to kill myself. They were like, watched me like a hawk. I'd walk out of a room. They wouldn't let me walk out of a room. It was so, but I think it's all about learning how to not run from it and not try to cope like a 3D person in a 3D world, but pulling all that light and power into the body and just kicking ass, you know? So when I gave up the resistance of who I was and said, basically, F you, mom, dad, religion, brother, family, friends, everything, I'm doing it my way. It was like, I mean, since the age of 43, I felt like I started living. So it was when I embraced that power, because everything teaches us you're crazy. You weren't some god. Who do you think you are? Like, that would be the first thing someone would say to you, you know, like, you're not a god. Like, you're crazy. You can't have a memory of that. You can't think you have superpowers. You can't know things before they, like, we're just programmed to be so small. And you cannot, it's like a mind F upon a mind F upon a mind F. I can almost identify as the most powerful players in the game by how messed up they've been up to this point. It's not the
Yeah.
pristine people that are the power players, you know? It's the
Right.
it's the traumatized, angsty, spinning, depressive, obsessive, addicted. Like those are who you want to go to and look for truth, really. I mean, it's opposite. Everything's inverted here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I think about how many people I had in my life who, like, one of the biggest contributors of like frustration and pain my whole life is that like people just don't listen to me, you know? And it's like, hey, I know what's good for me. I understand most all of this is just bullshit.
Yep.
It's something somebody else made up, and I can do whatever I want. I can live how
Yep.
I please,
Yep.
you know? And like you could too if you chose to change your path, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the life that I've lived to my whole life has felt like a movie, you
Well,
know?
you
Like,
also,
no,
I mean, you were pulled out as a child for the programs. And again, this has a lot of technology involved and a lot of, so similar to the stuff Isaac talks about, like that happened to you. Like you were technology was used on you. You're in the programs, you're in the astral secret space program where they train you to, it's just crazy. I didn't know who I was fully, you know, until later. Currently, you're doing a lot of work for the intelligence agencies, even right now, they use you.
you know what's weird is that like, because you know, look, this is definitely 100% on par for the type of conversation that I like to have. I'm down for the wildest, craziest conversations, and I'm always somebody that's not afraid to be honest, you know, to say what I feel, you know, like, I mean, you talk about intelligence agencies and work. Tell me why, for literally years, I constantly ponder what would it be like to go work for the CIA?
Yeah, I mean, you do. I mean, you do. You work for the agency, which is what I call all of them. I mean, you're doing specifically right now, you're doing a lot of work for the NSA and Homeland. They have you on a lot of projects. US military, ACAO, which is out of Pine Gap in Australia. You're part of it's funny you're doing this show because what the ACIO is purportedly, I don't totally believe this is true, but their open mission statement is to bring forth revealing of like conspiracies, ETs, UFOs, like to bring that forth. So it's funny that you're doing like an open, like, you know, that that you allow this stuff to be talked about because you actually work for an organization that is promoting like the upgrading of the game. So it's funny to me that you're doing it.
What I mean, you brought up ETs. What is your thought process? Because I've always kind of been somebody that thought any like aliens, at least like the thought of like I'm not, you know, I'm a flat Earth guy, you know, or like a hologram, you know,
Oh,
like so the space thing, I'm not really with. But like, I mean, I definitely have a thought process that, you know, as I understand more of like the different dimensional thing. I mean, you always hear the interdimensional beings coming.
right, right.
You know, I think Alex Jones, but I mean that
Mm.
if we're everywhere at once and time is not actually we're not actually bound by, which
Right,
that's my one of the things that I realized early on in taking psychedelics is the two
right.
concepts that don't make sense at all are time, seconds feel like minutes, minutes can feel like hours, hours can feel
Yep,
like
yep, yep,
seconds,
yep, yep, yep.
and money. Neither of those concepts make any sense when you are
Right,
heavily under the, you know, and
right.
so to me, they're like the most bullshit elements, right? It's like, Our money system is bullshit, right? Our,
True.
you know,
I,
it's all a game.
It is all good.
It's,
But here's the thing. Here's what I've come to realize. And this is like, so I realize there's lenses. So we can look at things from a more solid, what we can touch lens, and then we can start pulling out forth. There's really no dimensions because everything is happening all at once. What makes the difference is your ability to connect to those layers or levels. I call it all the way back to the all. Some would call it the void or God, and I sometimes call it the void. I gave up religion about 5 years ago. But so, I mean, I am like, it is talk about, I know you believe differently and I totally respect that. But to me, you know, my dad's a pastor, Southern Baptist pastor, and I grew up, went to Christian school, Christian college. I know the Bible backward and forward. But I never, yet I skipped church, but yet I never wanted, I was like, you know, people would sing hymns and I'd be like, are these people fucking crazy? Like, how could they even, like, it made me cringe. It was like my nervous system was screaming in church. Like, I couldn't stand it. Like, there was something wrong to me about it. And, you know, it was so boring. Like, prayer, like, I could never pray. I'm like, it just didn't make sense to me. And then sin, like, who decides, like, oh, okay, well, I asked it the right way, I asked it the wrong way. Where's the qualification? Like, is a white lie sin? Is a black lie? Like, the whole sin, like, there's so many things to wrestle with in religion, you know? And I would logically think about it because I had that adult mind. But anyway, so I gave up religion, and because I can see through the dimensions, I didn't even understand there was something that people called the dimensions. But now I realize we're holographic projectors and we are in whatever reality we're in. So we are universes, we are on other ships, we are in things that you can't even verbalize because there's things that are created and we've created and have been created that we don't know because we don't consciously remember. So we're involved in all this stuff. So it depends on the lens. When you ask me a question about ETs, if you want to go to a 3D program lens under the dome, as Stephen King tells us in the game, are there races that look different than us? Blue avians, cetacean, Palladian, whatever, Draco. Are there races that dip into the game and harass us and battle us and good guys, black, you know, bad guys? And yes, I believe it's part of the script of the game. But if you pull way out, you know, are there races that look one way, you know, hybrids and talking animals and all this stuff? Yes, I believe there's many realities. But what makes a reality real? What makes a reality a game reality? What makes it, when you really start thinking, it's all the same. Everything's a game, everything's not a game, everything matters, everything doesn't matter. Like, you have to start holding, when you really get to an awakened consciousness and a higher frequency, you have to be able to hold everything like in both hands all the time. And then you have to understand when you're talking, we have to make sure we're talking under the same lens. You know what I mean? So are we talking from out of the game? Because you and I vibrate, you aren't aware, but you do. You and I vibrate out of the game. So we're able to, and this is what you need to be aware of, you need to stop reading people that are below your vibration because you're actually a lot more of a master than you think you are. You're way above ascended master level. So you need to stop putting yourself under this bullshit stuff you're reading. You need to start listening to you and tapping into you. Because I now play the game from outside the game, which you also have the ability to do. What you're doing is you're coming back in the dome and you're reading the programming that's to keep you small. Even all the wealth stuff and all the manifestation stuff, that's not the truth. The real secret you've already accomplished and you don't even know you have because you're already out of the game. So this is your final incarnation. You probably will not choose to come back. And if you do, you will come back in control as a power player just for manipulative fun, which there's no judgment there because there's no good and evil. So, but you will, I don't think you're coming back. I think you're going to move on and do other things as this expression of you. But that's my guess. I mean, it's up to you. I can't, you know. But you've already won. You've won because you're already out of the game. So anytime you put yourself, and this is, of course, my point of view, my opinion, and we're all on different journeys, but I'm just encouraging you, you are thinking still too small. I'm sorry, I'm yelling at you. I'm treating you like
no,
we're in a one.
no, no, no. I'm taking it in. I'm reflecting.
You know,
Look. I already know we're connected, Kim. I can feel it. I'm here. I'm resonating with the things that you're saying for sure. You know, and I just am taking it in, and I do believe that you're correct in so many ways beyond even what you're thinking now. But I do want to clarify, like, I classify myself into any sort of religious body.
okay.
I do believe in also the all, the one God, that, and that we are all connected
Yes. Yeah.
in some way, shape, we
Absolutely. Yeah.
are and are the people around us. And it's funny because you talk about me playing small, and it's like I think about some of the people that I've had around me over the last, I don't know, 5, 7 years, 10 years, and multiple people felt it was their job to like check me and like bring me down, you know, and so like, so for me, and those people, right, like obviously one of them, she's going to be a part of my life. That just unfortunately is a part of it, but we're no
Okay.
longer living together. She's not in my general
That's
space. And
that's their favorite. The romantic other handler. They love that's their
you know and
symbol. Yeah. That's their
but
favorite.
we talk about the lenses. I'm a big believer in that people can only understand to their level of perception.
And I agree,
And
and I respect that. Just so everybody knows, I understand. Like I call myself a final incarnation girl. If you want to exit the matrix this time, I'm your girl. If you're on a different place in the journey and you're coming back 30 more times, you're not going to be able to hear me. You're going to be like, she's a crazy bitch. You know what I mean? That's fine. I get that. I know who I am. I know why I'm here.
well, and I grew up in a Catholic church. So, you want to talk about bored out of my skull.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember being 13, and as soon as I could, I'd like sneak out and go like smoke cigarettes outside, come back in right before communion,
Been,
you know. And then
been there.
finally I was like, Mom, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to church every Sunday with
Good
you.
for you. Yeah, good
You
for you.
know? But my entire life has been a journey of like, I mean, you talked about wanting to kill yourself at 3. I wouldn't necessarily say that I wanted to kill myself, but even as a young child, I always think about like not wanting to be a little too close to the edge of a balcony because it'd be like there's the temptation to just jump off because I want all I
Right.
think about, one of the major themes of my life is reconnecting to the all,
Right.
and it's like my spiritual journey has been about taking everything in because I think there's pieces in everything, but like to say,
Yes. Yeah.
to
Agree.
say, to take up the Bible for me and just say, oh, this is a literal thing of things that happen. That's not what I get from it. It's like, but like I look at, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to read the Epic of Gilgamesh as well. I'm not going to look in, I've been obsessing over like the Gnostic Gospels lately, you know? Yeah.
Place. But it is a journey. I've been there too. I've been, I didn't used to, back to the ET thing. So I guess about the ET thing, like I said, I believe, from the big lens, are there any ETs? No, there's just different expressions of us playing different roles and different games and different realities. Like I don't really think there's any other, but yet I do think there's ETs. But the funny thing is, and I could look at yours, we're coming into this avatar and we're carrying like 30, 40 ET races inside us with the soul. So our soul isn't like, how somebody will be like, I'm Andromedan or I'm Palladian. If you ever talk to any of those people, it's not true. You will rarely meet someone, or I will rarely meet someone that has like that one soul signature. Like I have like 40, you have like 40. We're like we're bringing all these frequencies. It's like a pizza where you can see the slices, but there's nothing missing. We're bringing our whole selves. So it's not like we're 5% Palladian, 10% Andromedan. No, we're all Palladian. We're all Andromedan. So that means whatever you know about those races, specialties, maybe they're a military race, maybe they're a remote viewing race, maybe they're a peacemaking race, maybe they're a healing race, whatever, you're bringing that all in at this time. That's where we get this walking in. We can talk about walk-ins, walk-outs. You're actually getting ready to walk out, which is how I know you're going to leave some of this stuff behind and you're going to upgrade because you're getting ready to walk out, because we walk in and out, or we upgrade, we bring in different pieces of ourselves in order to handle the next phase of our life. You just said you're going into a new phase of your life. You're creating a healing center, in a recovery center, and you're going to need different tools. So you've arranged ahead of time to walk.
So let me ask you about the cloning, because I've seen some people talk about it. I know we kind of briefly touched on it earlier, but then went to 30 other things. With the cloning of the consciousness into another body, it's like you see, like, one, I've heard that some people talk about they like basically take almost a little piece of your bone, like right here, and implant it into the other body. And then also, what is the role of cloning in some of these prominent figures, right? It's like they come out of jail looking like a whole totally different person. You have no, I'm sorry, I'm just chomping at the bit over here because my whole area of study lately has been on law and the realities of our legal system and how the frameworks of this dual fake citizenship, it's a fucking game. And you're talking, you start bringing that up and how it's a game. And literally, I just was reading some shit about how it's like when they're in a lawsuit, when the attorney is like filing this at you, you need to file this. You're just batting it back and forth. It's just back and forth until the other guy has no more moves. You know, that's why I'm into it's a mental challenge and it's spiritual. It's like meditation, those moments when you're only focused in a flow state. Please tell me what to do. That's fine. Yeah, well, and I think that's something that, again, we fall back on. People can only understand to their level of awareness, and if they don't have these different perspectives to be able to understand how we're all connected and the way things are, then they're not, it makes them mad, honestly. Right, right, right. No, doesn't make any sense. People's whole thought process doesn't make sense. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, look, we're coming up on an hour. I don't want to keep you. Where can people find you? What, maybe insight or like where can people, if somebody's new to this type of stuff, what do you recommend? How can they, where do they start? Yeah, please. No, please. I'll talk as long as you tell me you got to go. Yeah. Yeah, it's getting trade. Yeah, if you have your acoustic number, you can look at what fund have your social security number. You can see they still trade dead people's social security numbers. It's insane to think about how our energy is the media. I had a friend, Derek. He was a kid I've known since I was 5. At one point, we were about 18, 19 maybe. I didn't see him for a long time. He grew up, his family was in kind of a cult, actually. I didn't see him, and when I saw him, he had been going through it with his own struggles with drugs. And we were outside the skate shop, smoking a cigarette, talking. And he told me, he said, Elliot, don't call me Derek anymore, call me Dex, and starts going on about how we live in the Matrix. And I was like, Derek, this is 2004, 2005. I'm like, Derek, you're nuts. And then like 10 years later, I'm like, holy crap, Derek was 100% right. And he actually ended up going, getting super depressed, went to this University of Maryland to go skateboard and ollied off the top of a building and killed himself. And like, it's a burden to carry it at times. Heavy is the head, exactly. I know that, because that, when you have that type of connection to the all, like, you're more in control of your destiny than you're led to believe. That it is on you and that at any given time you can turn the lights off and go reconnect. See, me, I feel like I'm not done. I mean, that's just it. It's like, I'm not done here. So I'll be here for a little while. And, and so when we get to this type of understanding, it's not easy, and when you, yeah, well, you, look, I read the Rick Strassman book, the DMT Spirit Molecule book, where he did the studies on DMT. One of the things he talks about in there is that he believes it acts like, because the main times that we get DMT naturally in our body, outside of little doses, right? Naturally, when we dream and whatever, like there's one at 49 days into the gestation period, when you're, it's like basically like a big explosion of it when you come out of the womb and when you die. And like, so it acts, the belief is that it acts as like a cushion to carry your spirit out. That's why it's so closely linked to like a near death experience. It's a very similar experience because that's what it's meant to do. And your body, your brain, like just the way that whole area works, the way he describes it as like, it's almost like your brain quenches up the DMT in a way comparable to like getting a bottle of ice cold water in a desert. Like your brain is like, that's why it only lasts 5-10 minutes because your brain soaks it all in and it has like some receptors and it's the same area is like your melatonin area all right around the pineal, which would lead one to believe that our dream states and all that whole realm. It's like, how do you not see it as we're like, I don't believe that there is a heaven and hell, right? I believe we go back and yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, look, I want to respect your time. I don't want to get too crazy. Yeah, yeah. So I'm hoping we can get a part two sometime in the future. We'll be in touch. I'm gonna find that aura book too, and maybe some of these other books I've been reading too, and just to, that's exactly what I need. Shut this brain the fuck up. All right, here, I'm gonna end the recording.